You had a plan today. You woke up knowing exactly what needed to be done. The email you've been avoiding for 3 weeks, the project that's due, the phone call that would take 7 minutes but feels like climbing Everest. You had the plan, you had the time, you even had the energy. And then something happened, or rather, nothing happened. You sat down to start and instead spent 40 minutes reading the same 3 paragraphs of an article you don't even care about. You reorganized your desk, you made another coffee, you opened the task, stared at it, closed it, and then somehow it was 6 p.m. and the day had evaporated like it was never yours to begin with. And now comes the guilt, the specific, crushing weight of having done nothing when you had every intention of doing something. You replay the day in your head. You run the math on how much time you wasted. You make promises to yourself about tomorrow. You call yourself words you wouldn't say to your worst enemy: lazy, pathetic, useless. You've tried every productivity system. You've bought the journals, set the timers, color-coded the calendar. You've watched the motivational videos, read the self-help books, downloaded the apps, and nothing sticks. Because they all assume your problem is organization. They all assume you just need a better system. But what if the problem isn't that you're lazy? What if it's not a character flaw at all? What if your brain is stuck in a state of emergency that has nothing to do with willpower? Society has one story about the person who can't get things done. They don't want it enough. If you really cared, you'd do it. If you were really serious, you'd find a way. The whole architecture of modern achievement is built on this assumption, that motivation is a choice, that action is a decision, that the gap between knowing and doing is simply a matter of willpower. This is one of the most dangerous myths ever sold to a generation of people who are quietly struggling. Because here's what they won't teach you in school, and what most productivity gurus have never heard of: functional freeze. It's not a diagnosis, it's not in the DSM, but it describes something millions of people experience every single day. You are functional, you go to work, you hold conversations, you appear fine on the outside, but internally, you are frozen. The system is running, but nothing is being processed. The engine is on, but the car won't move. And the reason has nothing to do with laziness. It has everything to do with your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, just in the wrong context, at the wrong time, in a world it was never built for. Most people have heard of fight or flight. Threat appears, body chooses, attack it, or run from it. It's clean, it's fast, it's dramatic. Hollywood loves fight or flight. But there's a third response that nobody talks about, the one the deer uses when it stands frozen in the headlights: freeze. The freeze response is ancient. When an animal is overwhelmed, when the threat is too big to fight and too fast to outrun, the nervous system does something unexpected. It shuts down voluntary movement. It conserves resources. It plays dead, not from cowardice, but from survival math. The brain is making a calculation. If I can't win and I can't escape, the safest thing I can do is nothing. Now here's where it gets personal. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a lion and a to-do list. It was not designed for the specific kind of threat you live with every day: chronic, invisible, unresolvable pressure. A lion you can run from. An overflowing inbox? It's there when you sleep, it's there when you wake up. The performance review you're dreading doesn't have a body you can escape from. So your nervous system does the only thing it knows how to do with a threat it can't fight and can't outrun. It freezes you. Not because you're weak, because you're overwhelmed. An overwhelm at a neurological level is not a motivational state, it's a survival state, and you cannot be productive in survival mode. Psychiatrist and trauma researcher Dr. Peter Levine spent decades studying what happens when humans, like animals, get stuck in incomplete threat responses. Animals shake off the freeze. You watch a gazelle escape a cheetah, and minutes later it's grazing like nothing happened. It physically discharges the nervous system. But humans? We don't shake. We sit in the fear, analyze it, judge ourselves for feeling it, and the freeze deepens. And here's the layer most people never see. Functional freeze is cumulative. It's not just today's tasks that froze you. It's last month's shame about yesterday's avoidance, compounded with the anxiety about tomorrow. You're not paralyzed by the email. You're paralyzed by the weight of everything you think the email represents: your competence, your worth, your ability to function as a human being. That's not laziness. That's a nervous system that's been running on emergency power for so long it's forgotten what normal feels like. Your prefrontal cortex is like the CEO of your mind, calm, rational, forward-thinking. But when your amygdala fires a threat signal, it doesn't send a memo to the CEO. It locks the CEO in the basement. You're not failing to try. You're trying with the wrong part of your brain. So what do? I'm not going to give you a morning routine. I'm not going to tell you to eat the frog. If those worked for you, you wouldn't be here. The shift you need isn't a productivity strategy. It's a physiological one. You don't think your way out of freeze. You move your way out of it. First, understand that the antidote to freeze is always physical first, cognitive second. You have to calm the nervous system before you can engage the brain. This doesn't mean exercise. It means any small physical signal that the emergency is over. Slow, deliberate breathing, specifically a longer exhale than inhale, directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system. You're not doing this to relax. You're doing it to unlock the CEO, to get blood back to your prefrontal cortex, to give yourself back the ability to begin. Second, redefine what starting means. The freeze is often triggered not by the task itself, but by the entire imagined version of the task. Your brain doesn't think, write an email. It thinks, write an email, which means potential conflict, which means judgment, which means I might fail. So you shrink it until it's neurologically safe. Not write the email, just open the document. That's it. Your only job is to open the document, because motion, even tiny motion, begins to discharge the freeze response. The nervous system updates its threat assessment the moment you take any action. Third, and this is the hardest reframe of all, stop treating your freeze as evidence of your character. Every time you call yourself lazy for freezing, you add a new layer of shame to the pile. And shame is not a motivator. Shame is gasoline on the fire that's keeping you stuck. The freeze is not a verdict on who you are. It's information about what your nervous system is carrying right now. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Not a system, not a plan, a different story about yourself. The version of you that couldn't start today wasn't failing. It was carrying something heavy, in a body that ran out of safe options, in a world that never taught you what to do when your nervous system goes offline. You were sold a myth that discipline is a character trait, that the people who do things are simply made of better material than the people who freeze. But the research doesn't support that. The neuroscience doesn't support that. What does exist is the difference between a nervous system that's been given the tools to regulate itself and one that hasn't. You were never given those tools. You were just handed a to-do list and told to figure it out. So the next time you find yourself staring at the task, unable to begin, don't reach for the self-criticism. Instead, ask yourself something different. What is my nervous system trying to protect me from right now? Because the answer to that question is the beginning of actually getting unstuck. Not through force, not through shame, but through the one thing no productivity app has ever been able to sell you: understanding yourself. If this language helped you see yourself differently, drop a comment below. You're not lazy. You never were.